There we go. We're live. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever it is. We're live, and Stan, this is like, it's like one of those, you know, the telethons that you used to have. Do you remember, like, what Children in Need before it got woke, and you just had all these live broadcasts all day, and most of them were inane and boring. Except ours are brilliant. Ours are never inane and boring, especially when you're on, Stan. Guys. So listen. Voice of Wales had me on this afternoon. I did a live earlier on this morning. Guess why? If anyone can guess why, put it in the comments down below. Oh, here I've got to close a lot of stuff down here because I was faffing about doing all the editing stuff. I've just got to get the comments up here just to make sure there are some people actually. Look, we're up to over 140, and we've only just gone live. We didn't even advertise this live stream. We've just jumped on. And Stan, you all know Stan from Voice of Wales. We just had great crack for a couple of hours this afternoon doing a live. So we said, what the heck? We're going to do it all again this evening. And guess what? Dan didn't make it. That's all I'm going to say. Do you know what, Stan? Do you know what it is, mate?
When you have children, children come first.
Don't be making excuses for him. Don't be making excuses for him. I use that excuse all the time. Do you know what it is, mate? See youngsters, they don't have the staying power that us older gentlemen have, Stan. Do you know what I mean? I know he's watching. He's going to be you, horrible little whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it's good to see you, Stan. So, mate, what do you think of what's happening today? What's going on? The boys of the old brigade. That's right.
There's been several things, really, haven't there? There's been Lord Voldemort. He's out, and then of course you've had. You've had Nigel Farage making a speech, and mainly
I didn't even notice. I didn't notice. Genuinely didn't notice. What was it about? Well, was it anything important?
It was dwarfed by TR, so it was actually. He was actually putting a bit of meat on the bones.
Did you just Stan? Can I ask you something there? Did you just say somebody was dwarfed by TR?
No. He was. Oh yeah, he was dwarfed by TR, and that takes a lot of doing.
That's what I was going to say. That's it's been one of those days, Sam, where I've just gone completely mad. So goodness knows what's going to come out of my gob tonight. But it's and I haven't even had anything to drink. It's just water and tea.
Yeah.
But So Nigel was dwarfed by Tommy Robinson, which is a very interesting concept. And Stan's not here. No, Dan's here. Stan's not here. Dan is here. No, he's not. Stan's here. We're here with Stan, aren't we? So me and Stan are here, and we want to just, enough of the lightheartedness. We want to get down to some real brass tacks. Obviously, Tommy's out. Great news. Great speech. First of all, what did you think about what he said when he came out of the prison? We're not going to play it again tonight. We played it again already today, but we're not going to play it tonight.
Well, it reminded me of Brands Hatch and how they come out the starting line, because that's what he was. He was fired, absolutely fired up, and there was no je ne regrette rien. It was a case of what's in the past is in the past. I'm going forward. I'm taking everybody with me. It was nice to see that he had a rosary on, and I think that if that's his guide, then he'll do well.
Well, I agree. I mean, I thought that was very. I mean, there's a couple of interesting things. I thought it was what he said was very, very well thought out. And look, it was confrontational. Let's get it right. It was, but in a very. It wasn't confrontational way. I'm going to get you sort of way. It was confrontational way. I've come out. I know who you are. I know that you've done wrong, and we are gonna make films about you. It's as simple as that. I mean that's been Tommy's mode of operation since. I was going to try and say modus operandi, but it's very difficult to say that, isn't it? So that's been his mode of operation since 2017, 2018. It's been, okay, you're doing wrong. We're going to come and stick a camera on your nose. Now, here's the interesting thing about this, Stan. Obviously, very, very careful. We're not going to contempt us. We're going to put ourselves into contempt. But it seems to me that is what the deep state takes exception to. They know that if Tommy makes a film, and this is why they made the ROB films. We'll not say exactly what they are, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. You can get them on the Urban Scoop channel on Rumble. And what's the other one? There's another platform that the host of videos on, but primarily Rumble. The ROB films, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But there was some films that we made in Telford in the, at the beginning of 2020, 2021, and groundbreaking films. And the deep state
Absolutely.
and the mainstream media, because the mainstream media are terrified of this sort of stuff, because he's telling truths. Do you know what I think, Stan? I think the mainstream media are jealous of him as well, because do you not think people on GB News, Talk TV, even on ITV and Sky would love to make films like he makes, not giving a two hoots about what happens next, getting in front of.
If you have conversations with the lead journalists on GB News, you'll find out that every single one of them is scared to death, not of the producer, but of the government quango called the Communications Commission.
Ofcom. I mean, Ofcom. Right, something strange happening here. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's okay. No, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Ofcom, and one of the worrying things, and this is what we've got to be very careful of. This government will try and bring us under Ofcom's umbrella and silence us. That's what this is all about. They're going to try and do exactly the same to us as is happening at GB News, Talk TV. Well, Talk TV is not regulated anymore because Talk TV had the good sense to go internet only. And as much as I can't stand the man, the guy that led the trail for that was pierced moron, as I call him, pierced moron.
Yes.
The guy that said of young Bailey that there should be severe retribution against him. That's what he said, word for word. Now, was he prosecuted for what was it? What is it they're trying to push on Tommy? Harassment causing fear of death. Right now, he said that on national TV to an audience of goodness knows how many millions, and then it went all over the internet because you can still find it. So that young lad who was living in a town with a high population of the preferred demographic that we're not allowed to mention on these channels because we'll get banned. And nothing was said about pierced moron. But Tommy says something and the whole world goes completely mad. And that is the craziness about this. And I was listening to I'm not going to say who, but I was listening to a very well-known political activist, let's say, who is kind of dipping his toe a bit in with Tommy, and then oh no, the water's a little bit hot, I'm not getting in there, or maybe it's too cold, and he was pretty much saying, well, I don't really want to discuss Tommy, and we know why they don't want to discuss Tommy, because they're terrified of what's going to happen to them. And I was talking to someone else from Reform today, and they said, well, once Reform get into power, they'll change. There's somebody that's in Reform, they'll change. And this is a good mate of mine. I says, do you know what? I says, I'm listening to what you're saying, right? Because I really respect you because you're a good mate of mine. And I hope you're right. But I really don't think that's going to happen. That's my gut feeling. I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, it's been a very, very interesting day. It's been one of those days when your feet don't touch the ground because there's that much going on, and we haven't even talked about what happened in Liverpool. Do you know anything more about what happened in Liverpool, Stan? Have you heard any more about that? I haven't been across it.
Yeah, other than the fact that I when I saw it last night, I thought it was very strange, and my interpretation of what happened seems to have been borne out, other than the fact that I got his age wrong. So he'd been taking drugs all day, and he obviously wanted to go home or move locations, and he couldn't do because the road was blocked. But then an ambulance came up the road and he tailgated him. Now, the problem was, so he went into an area where the crowds will accept an ambulance or a police vehicle or a fire engine going down the road. But this was an unmarked car. And from what I saw, people started to bang his car and say something to the words of, "Oh, you're not supposed to be down here." And then somebody took a flying kick at his back windscreen, where he tried to then reverse him off, and he did. He repelled him, and he went flying. He then came back, and at that point, people saw that bit and thought he was trying to attack him. So then everyone else started to kick the car. And with him being high on drugs, he just drove off. Wow. That's my interpretation of what I saw.
Yeah. And that, I mean, yeah, that sounds very plausible. That sounds very plausible. And again, it's like we said earlier, it's just, this is the whole thing, the drug culture. It's just, man, what's going on in the country that this is what people need to get them through. It's like they talk in America about the fentanyl thing and the deaths of despair, where people are just literally drugging themselves to death and dying. It's not really offing themselves. It's really just drugging themselves, and then they just don't wake up. And I think what we talked about earlier, and we'll talk about it a bit later on as we go on with what we're saying. But getting back to Tommy, I mean, I thought it was very interesting when he came out. He seemed very focused. He seemed, and again, it was very interesting that he had the cross, that he was wearing the cross. I thought that was a very, very interesting statement that he made by putting that round his neck. And again, I think a lot of people said he looked very much like, Moses or Elijah, a wild prophet. But I believe since then he's probably got his family have probably told him, listen, get that off your face and off your head now, son.
Yeah, he did look like Ben Hare.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that it was like somebody said it was like a cross between Braveheart and an Old Testament prophet. I mean,
somebody called him. What was it? Elijah Elijah Robinson Crusoe, or something along those lines.
And then there was somebody else put up the clip from Forrest Gump where Forrest running does his run across America, with the beard and stuff. So listen, I mean, it's all good. I mean, obviously there's a lot of hurdles up ahead. 5th of June, he's basically obviously up in court again, and we can't talk about this case, so we're not going to, because there's no point in us joining him in the court, because somebody has to be out here making videos. And but I think what he does want, I think what we can say is he wants a lot of people outside the court, basically just to give him support. So as many people as can get there should get there. And again, I've said this and I keep saying it, and I'm not inciting anything. I'm not asking for. I'm quite the opposite, actually. I'm trying to give people, if the worst does happen, try to give people a peaceful outlet. But I think what people should do, if he's remanded on the 5th, is start doing peaceful, legal, legitimate street protests. And because if there's a lot of numbers get out on the streets, well, the reality is the police have to police that. And if you're being peaceful, you're not doing anything illegal, you're not breaking any laws.
Why would they remand him?
Well, this is the issue. The issue is they could, that's the problem. Once he appears in court, they could remand him, and it would be a travesty. It would be ridiculous. But it's supposedly a criminal case. Again, we'll say less about as little about the case as we possibly can. But man, I hope they don't. I hope they don't. But I think we've got to be prepared for that, Stan. If they do, we've got to say, right, let's have what's behind me. Let's have the bulldog spirit and stand up for him. And I think that's going to have to be the sort of tagline. You know, I stand with Tommy, and people will actually stand up. And so yeah, I mean, and then he went on and he spoke about the terrorism case. He spoke about the corruption in the Labour Party, and he seems to have a lot of information there that he's going to put out into the public domain. So I think they'll want to silence Stan. I mean, of course, Keir Starmer would swear black and blue that he never interferes with the judiciary. He never makes statements encouraging the judiciary to lock people up for nothing. Keir Starmer never does that, Stan. You know, but of course we know he does.
Or indeed his acolytes, hate not hope. You know, and others, Nick Lowles, who lied and lied again.
Hate without hope, and with Penfold and his trusted sidekick. You know, I mean, it's they're a strange bunch, them ones, and let's say, I mean, you know, sooner or later the truth about them will come out. There, you know, there's a lot there, and I'm not going to say any more than that. But that's a movie waiting to be made. I can tell you. I only have
one passport, don't you, Rick?
I've only got one passport. Yeah,
I have.
I think we frozen, Stan. I don't know if anyone can. Yeah, I think we've frozen, mate. I don't know if you. Oh, we're back. We both look like we'd had a stroke there. We'd mutually had a stroke at the same time on screen. We're like that. But we're back now, and fully operational. Look, listen, there's loads of people on. There's nearly 837 people on. Let's see if we can get over 1,000. Guys, do me a favor, like and share this. Dive onto Counter Media. Somebody said earlier on, if I mention the pledge, they're going to go. Well, I'm going to mention the pledge at the end, right? So you don't have to worry. You can stay till the end, and then I'll mention the pledge. So that if you want to watch the whole stream and then clear off at the end, that's absolutely fine. I put the comment up there. Dive onto Counter Media, guys. Like and subscribe to Counter Media. Voice of Wales. Find you guys on Twitter, and where else do we get you guys?
Facebook,
Voice of Wales,
Twitter,
social media,
Rumble.
Right, okay, Facebook, Getter.
Phone names are.
No, well, look, do you know what? Just Google Voice of Wales and keep and whenever you find some of their social media, like and subscribe. The other thing is what I've done. I know how hard these guys work, and I'm going to embarrass Stan and Dan here, but yeah, I'm going to give you a plug in the description. I've already put the description up there on the two YouTube videos. I think it'll be hopefully it'll be on Twitter as well. In the description, there's a link to a payment gateway for Voice of Wales. If you can support them, get on there, support these guys. They're demonetized everywhere. You know, like, I mean, I finally got one channel that I've got. Do you know what, Stan? I've got a channel that's finally monetized. And as it stands at the minute, I'm looking at it. It looks like I'm going to get about $60, right?
Yeah,
from the monetization. You know,
I think I just break even.
These guys are demonetized. Yeah, I don't even break even on X. I got $30 last month from X. $30. But I don't do X that much, you know. But yeah. So if you can go on and support these guys, the links in the description of the video. Do that afterwards and give them a bit of help. My little support links there as well. So anything that you guys can do is greatly appreciated, and we thank you in advance for it. And I tell you what, a lot of the viewers have been so supportive of me in the last few months. It's been absolutely incredible. And again, give these guys some support too. Share the love, and obviously, you know, Tommy's continual legal battles. Get onto Urban Scoop, Fight the Mail on Urban Scoop, and give those guys a bit of a shout out as well. Next thing I want to talk about, Stan, 13th of September in London. Give me your thoughts. What's it about? Why should people go to London on the 13th of September?
Because we still, believe it or not, live in a free and democratic society, and we can exercise those rights peacefully, enjoyably, meet new friends. You know, greet old friends, and thoroughly enjoy the day. This is what, the fourth one now, and each one has been bigger than the last one, and the peace and love and has been tremendous. And that's the only people that will spoil that are the left and the police.
Yeah, and we talked about. I mean, we went into that in depth in the video we did on your channel. But we had a I'm going to say this because, again, look, I mean, when the police do a really good job, and on the whole, they have done a really good job, right? They've been great to work with, and they've been professional, and they've been courteous, and we've been professional. We've been courteous back. But when it goes wrong, it's got to be called out. And the last event. It very nearly went very, very seriously wrong, and we were talking about this earlier. But in case anyone didn't see the earlier stream that we did on Voice of Wales, at the last event, the most senior police officer on the ground decided it would be a good idea to try and start arresting football lads that were just standing on the pavement doing absolutely nothing because they were in the wrong place as he perceived it. Even though when we'd negotiated the terms of the event of the march, the same officer had agreed that if we reached a critical mass, excuse me, where there were too many people on one side of the road, that the road would be closed. And instead of that, he suddenly decided, no, I'm going to start nicking people, which absolutely, and we've got all this recorded, which absolutely would have caused serious problems on the day. Now, because Voice of Wales were there filming it, because I intervened and spoke to the officer and said, this is a complete breach of trust. You can't do this. And other words about, you've got a camera pointing at you with 50,000 people looking at you. If there's a riot, which there will be if you start arresting football lads for nothing, you're getting filmed and you're going to lose your job, not me. At which point he said, oh, well, start clearing off the road. And then 30 seconds later, the road closure went in. Surprise, surprise. But that should not have happened. It shouldn't have happened, and it was bad faith. It was wrong, and and the reason I'm bringing this up now is because obviously there'll be discussions with the police, and I think it's imperative that we have a team that can handle the pressure. I think it's and I'm not going to say any more than that. And I think
a lessons learned as well, Rich. So that was one incident. The incident before that. The previous event was when they allowed Antifa with the Palestine stuff to come right up to our lines. There was no need for that. It was a rogue officer or whoever, a misinformed police officer. But it's that kind of thing that, and it takes just one incident. Exactly,
and again, that was another instance where myself and a few people got across the road, and again, because people respect us, because we've been doing this quite a long time, and we managed to stop lads running up the road after that guy with the flag and prevent something. But it was listen, there's been numerous occasions when we've been doing events where we've stopped problems. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure the police have done a lot of stuff as well. I'm not, because again, on the whole, the people I deal with, are very good, very, very respectful, but it only takes one or two bad apples and the whole event can unravel very, very quickly. And that's one of the things we've got to make sure doesn't ever happen, But again, I mean, like I say, I'm not expecting anything like that in the next event because, again, the team that will be deployed will no doubt be a team that doesn't do any of that, and that we know that we can work with. So I mean, it's not like there's any worries about there being any aggro. And the thing is, Stan, at all of these events, we've made sure that there isn't any trouble whatsoever. There hasn't been one jot or tittle of trouble in the whole the whole time we were doing it. So there we go. Michael's already booked for September. Brilliant. You see, that's the enthusiasm there is. That's the enthusiasm there is for what is happening.
I've already booked to the Union Jack.
Oh, Yeah, well,
So
I'm tagged at the minute, so I can't go anywhere. But yeah, no. Oh, there we go. Thanks for that. So yeah, thanks, Sue Curtin. That's brilliant. Really, really appreciate that. Do you know what? It was such it. I got it this morning, and kind of, I had a pretty good idea he would be getting out today, but I didn't think they'd boot him out at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was. You know what I mean? And I think it was great. I mean, you said something earlier, Stan, which I thought was quite good about Charles Charles III, but possibly following in the footsteps of Charles I. And it was said in jest, but do you know what? There's a lot in that. There's a lot in that. And I absolutely believe in the constitutional monarchy. I believe in the royal family. I love the Queen. She was like everybody's granny. I was at a trade show in Amsterdam when the news of her death came out, and there was a lot of people weeping. Even people, international trade show. There's people from Holland, people from Israel that were actually really emotional about what happened to our Queen. That's how loved she was, not just in our country but globally. But unfortunately, something's gone wrong in the royal family.
When that happened. I was in Greece when that happened, and it just came on a TV next a bar next to me, and immediately people started to sing "God Save Our Gracious Queen."
Wow! And was it all English people, or was the foreigners singing as well? Was it English people?
It was mixed. It was mixed, and people stood up, and it was silent apart from the national anthem.
Wow! I mean, it's incredible, and I mean, of course, Philip was Greek. That's the thing. He was Greek, wasn't he? He was I think he was kind of a bit of a refugee because there was all sorts of trouble going on in Greece at that time, and his family had to get out.
He was banned. I don't. People have a go at the royal family, and they have a go at them from a position of ignorance. Philip was a decorated naval officer who was in the Mediterranean campaign.
That's right.
Which was quite bitter. The Italian Navy were actually quite good, particularly on the submarines or the little submarines. I don't know what they're called, but whatever. But equally as dangerous. And he could never go back to his homeland ever. And when his mother passed away, who was also the last Queen of Greece, she's buried on the Mount of Olives, isn't she? She couldn't be repatriated.
I didn't know that.
Back
Is that
Greece.
right? Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah.
She became a nun.
Yes, she did. That's right. She did. She became a nun. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
And she's buried on the Mount of
Olives.
It's
a bad habit. It's a bad habit, that becoming a nun. But my corny jokes, they just get worse and worse and worse, don't they? But no, I mean, I think there are definitely problems with the royal family, and that's a worry because, and I think it's because of what King Charles is identifying, and the whole state are identifying more and more with, and this brings it back to why Tommy's so important, because again, we're very aware of our channels. We don't want to fry our channels, but the reality of the situation is that he's the only person that has relentlessly, fearlessly highlighted the issues coming from that certain demographic area, so to speak. And I think that's why he is such an important person. And also, a lot of people, if they just don't, like, how many, I can't remember how many, was it 6 months in solitary confinement, something like that, wasn't it? It was just some ridiculous amount of time. 6-7 months. Anybody coming out to make a speech like that, right? They've hardly spoken to anyone, in an uncensored way, because every time, I don't know, did you go and see him in prison? Yeah. So when you go and see him in prison,
we got one of the letters going.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I got in once. Actually, I must admit, it was after I did my live stream outside Wood Hill Prison. that everybody started getting banned from going to see him. So I hope that wasn't my fault, but hey ho, if it was, it is what it is. He's out now, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think it was me and Dan Watton put paid to the visits, you know. But all we were doing was just reporting the truth. We didn't even say anything that was going to prejudice anything or give too much away. We were just saying about how strict the security was. You know, you're sitting down getting sniffed by sniffer dogs for half an hour before you got anywhere near him. It was like it reminded me of. Do you remember remember Rudolf Hess? Do you remember Rudolf Hess in Spandau Prison, where he had like a full battalion of British soldiers guarding him in Berlin? That's what it was like. Yeah. It was like he was the prisoner of Spandau. I mean, he was basically just on his own in this big compound, away from everywhere and away from everybody. And man, I was claustrophobic. I was only going to visit him. Do you know what I mean? So it's but no, I mean,
the funny thing is that I believe that Rudolf Hess was suicided. He didn't commit suicide, and so the great. And so the great parallels. I thought Julian Assange was going to be suicided, but
so did I.
He's now a former shadow of himself, and that's the modus operandi that they're looking to do with Tommy.
They want to break you. They want to, you know, when you're standing like Tommy's standing, they want to break you. And listen, they'll break you on the outside, and they'll break you on the inside. They just want to push and push and push. They push every single button they can. And that's what we've got to realize as well. I remember watching a documentary about Arthur Scargill and during the miners' strike. And obviously, Scargill very much would have been perceived as by the state in the same way that Tommy's perceived, threat to the state, you know, all this sort of nonsense. Because this was back when we had a supposedly conservative government that sold everything to foreign entities. But that's another story. But but Scargill, when he was leading the miners, the whole of the NUM council, if you like, I mean, I was going to say army council, it wasn't army council, but the whole of their command structure, every single one of them, apart from Scargill, were working for MI5. Absolutely incredible. And that's what we've got to realize. We've got to realize that there's a lot of state actors, and we forget the way this game is played, and we should know it from Northern Ireland. We know exactly what they did in Northern Ireland. They controlled as many people as they could. They collected people. And quite often, the reason they collect people is not to get information, because look, we've got these phones here. That gives the state any information they want. You know, I mean, if they want to know what we're doing, they've just got to listen on the phones. But what they want to do, they're not interested in so much getting information about us, but what they want to do is knock us off course. And this is a really important point for anybody that's watching. If you've got dragged into any of and this is why I never comment on the infighting publicly. I'll never say anything. I'll go to people privately. I'll never say anything publicly when people are, you know, slagging different factions off and slagging this person off and slagging that person off. I'll stand up for the people that get slagged off, but I never go and attack the people that are doing it publicly, even though I know exactly who they are and what they're saying. But what I say is this: even if you're not working for the state, you are doing the state's work for them. If you're sowing disunity and discord among the brethren, so to speak, if you're causing problems and getting people at each other's necks, then you are definitely doing the work of the deep state. And if you're not getting paid by them, then somebody's pulling your chain and encouraging you to do that. And that's what you need to look at. Who are the people in the background that are destabilizing things? You find them, and you find where the problem is. And again, look, some people do it just because they're wrong uns, just because they they fight with their own shadows. But anyway, going off on a bit of a tangent there. But no, 13th, I think it's going to be great, and I think there's going to be a lot of people there. Again, I've got the privilege of knowing some of the speakers that have provisionally confirmed that they're coming, and if they're definitely coming, man, I mean, these are very, very high profile patriots from all over the globe, and it's going to be absolutely spectacular. Like I was saying, what we
that itself, if those people do come, Rick, that itself sends a signal to the government. It sends a signal to for Starmer, who came out in the White House and said, "But we do have free speech, Mr. President."
Yeah.
But not free speech that I think of and you think of, but what he deems
Yep.
as, and so that
Yes.
you've got that, and you've got people with a laser focus now that will be, and if it's a good guest list, that will give the government that they will have to pause and perhaps take a retreat step.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, you know, I think, and again, it's what we're talking about earlier. If he gets remanded or whatever, I think, you know, if I was the state, right? If I was the state, I would be looking at Tommy and going, "This is a guy we need to protect. This is a guy that we actually need to look after." Because even though he literally puts two fingers up at them whenever they push him far enough, he doesn't. It's not like he backs down and goes, "Oh, yeah, sorry, Governor, I'm just a little working class lad. I'm not going to do anything." No, he does the opposite. He says, "Yeah, you want to have a bit of that? Let's do it." You know what I mean? So even though that's him, right? He's probably one of the people in this country that can stop this country into going into a very, very dark place. And I've spoke to him often enough and long enough over the years to know that that is exactly what he wants to do, is de-escalate the country from going down a very, very dark road. He is a Democrat. He wants everything done democratically, and he wants stuff done peacefully. He's not looking for conflict. He's looking for exactly the opposite. And if you listen to anything that he said, if you look at what he's done, and this is the thing about the 13th and the previous events that we've had, going back actually to St. George's Day 2024, obviously not the St. George's Day one, that wasn't anything to do with our group, but St. George's Day 2024 was the start of really these events. Of course, we'd had Telford, had all the other events. We'd had events in London for years, but these mass events where we brought people together from different ethnic groups, different faith groups. We had Sikhs there, we'd Hindus, we'd Jewish people, we'd Muslims, we'd Christians, we'd atheists, we'd probably a few Jedis and Satanists as well. In fact, actually, at the last one, there was a guy there that was a Satanist who converted to Christianity. That was an interesting one, wasn't it? I don't know if you saw him, but he was certainly. It's true. He was certainly, he was certainly in the process of converting. Very interesting. But so we've had, and there's been a very big emphasis on Christianity in all the events, and hopefully that'll be the same in the next one. But
do you know what, Rich? The thing is, when I lived in Manchester, I used to go drinking in a place just to the north of Manchester. There's Old Trafford and Whalley Range, and when the Indians or the Pakistanis or the Aussies came over, they used to more or less stop at people's houses. They weren't in hotels, and in the night they'd be in the pubs. And so you had a bit of banter, but I always remember there's two Indian guys, Sikhs, and they're builders, and their motto on their van is, "You've tried the cowboys, now try the Indians." And they go and have a drink with us. They swear, cuss, and whatever in the pubs, and when they come to the freedom marches, it's because they want to keep what they've got, which is that integration. It is that difference, but it's the same, because we all have one. We all want one thing, and that's a peaceful, prosperous, democratic nation that hasn't got waiting lists for houses and hospitals and ambulances and dentists and schools going hot. We want the United Kingdom of an age in the 70s or even 60s, where people got on with each other. Now the left try to sow division. Hate not hope isn't about hope. It's about sowing division. It's about hate, magnifying the differences.
I call it hate. I call it hate without hope, Stan. That's what I call it. Hate without hope, because they're doing exactly that. And again, this is the thing. You're absolutely right. What we're doing with the Unite the Kingdom events is, Dio's got it on his shirt, black and white, unite. Wendell's been massively involved in that. That Ken that came to the last event as well. And it's about bringing people together and getting back to those days where we weren't growing up in our silos, because the truth of the matter is, when I grew up, there's only one group of people that stayed in their silos, so to speak, that didn't mix. And I'm not going to say who that was. Everyone knows, basically who I'm talking about there. But on the whole, everybody mixed. When I was at school, Hindus, Sikhs, Somali lads, lads from the West Indies, all mixed together. When we were in the military, exactly the same. Didn't matter what colour you were. My regiment, because it was, even though I was from Middlesbrough, I was in a regiment that was raised from mainly West Yorkshire. So there was a lot of black lads there, from sort of Huddersfield area, Sheffield, and they were totally 1,000,000% integrated, because this is in the mid 80s, and a lot of them have been serving since the late 70s, and there were some of the best, most reliable lads, and the best soldiers, and lads that could really look after themselves as well. I remember an infamous barroom brawl in Northern Ireland, where somebody, one of the folk from Northern Ireland, made a bit of a racist comment, and they realised they bit off more than they could chew with our boxing team, who were basically predominantly West Indian lads who sparred with people like Bomber Graham and Nigel Benn. So, but the truth is, we all mixed, we all got on. We didn't see colour in my regiment. We really didn't. Now, when I was in the military, there were some regiments that were racist. I'll not mention them, but there was two, and I wouldn't need to say, because you know the ones I'm talking about, right? But on the whole, regiments in the British Army didn't have a problem with racism whatsoever. No. And again, we kind of looked down on the regiments that did have a problem with racism, because we were very progressive in those days. But yeah, so I think what we had in the 70s and 80s, Stan, was the right sort of mix. And again, there were tensions here and there, but there was a massive amount of integration. Everybody got on, and if people came to the country, worked hard, integrated, like you say, went for a few beers with lads at the end of the night, got involved in whatever it was that they got involved in. The football, I mean, the football scene was obviously massive in the 70s and 80s, and it was just the way it was. But what's happened in the last 10 to 15 years with identity politics, and people thinking, well, because I'm black, I can't do this, or because I'm Indian, I can't, I've got to be careful of these Tommy people and all this nonsense. It's crazy. And if you look at what's happened with what Tommy's done since he's been an activist, he's always had Sikhs and Muslims and ex-Muslims and West Indian lads, African lads in the movement. That's always been the way of it. And it's not done for effect. It's done because we are an inclusive, and this is the difference between multiculturalism. And I had a discussion with one of our friends, I'm not going to say who, about this idea of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is the opposite of what it sounds. What multiculturalism is, it's not cultures mixing, it's cultures growing up in silos, never integrating, never the twain shall meet, living on their own. And obviously we know that some cultures like that. They want to be separate from everybody else. They want to be on their own because of their beliefs or whatever. But that doesn't work, because that's what happened in Northern Ireland.
I've actually wrote a piece today about the Welsh government and the fact that they're sowing division. So they're sowing division this way, that it doesn't matter how good or bad you are at your job, if you've got a brown skin, you're going to get £5,000 extra as an NHS worker than your colleague next to you. Now, is that not sowing division? Then you've got the police forces within Wales, and they're actually recruiting non-English speaking police officers. And I don't mean, they're going to be fluent Welsh. No, it's the Somalis and the other people as well. And it comes to a point where if you cannot recruit by fair means. In other words, you've got to speak the language of the United Kingdom, and if you speak Welsh, brilliant. That's a good thing in Wales. But if you don't, English has to be your first language in order to communicate. You couldn't have a Somali radio operator using a Klansman on an op, could you? And that's what the police are doing.
No.
And they're favouring different groups.
Yeah.
And it's not right. It's not right. It should be a meritocracy. It's where you've done a test and you're top of the test, and there's 3 jobs and you're number 3. You get the job. It's not, oh right, well you're number 3, but because we're down on a bit of a colour here, or we need a trans person, and that trans person may have come last in the test, they get the job. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it has real world consequences. I was saying this the other night on a stream, and it must have been about 2021. I was in London, and I happened to wander into a pro-Hamas event in the central London. So, people think it was only, Hamas did exist before 2023. And this was actually on the anniversary of Lee Rigby's brutal murder, and of course on the anniversary of the Ariana Grande massacre, right? And I walked through, and there's all these people with the Palestinian flags, and chanting exactly like they do, from the river to the sea. And so I started doing a live video. The next thing, I'm surrounded by, I suppose, half a dozen burly Islamists, and I think, oh, this is going to get interesting. And anyway, it settled down, and there was no real aggro. But afterwards, this guy comes up to me, a little small guy. It looked like he was Middle Eastern. I don't know where he's from exactly, but and he waves his
small guys.
Well, no, this guy, he was an undercover police officer. He shows me his warrant card. He says, look. He said, "Don't worry, I had your back." I was thinking, really? And he said, and he showed me his warrant card, right? And I said, "Oh," I says, I'm glad there's someone that's on side here." I says, "You don't support all these, terrible terrorist supporting people, do you?" He says, "Oh, I do." He says, "I absolutely support them." He was deadly serious. He says, "I totally support them." He says, "The Jews shouldn't be in that land." This is what the lad said to me, and I was like,
"Yeah,
but you're an undercover copper." And he went,
"Yeah.
Anyway, I've got to go," and he ran off up the street. So if he was a Hamas, think about this, right? So you've got a guy that's obviously supposedly doing surveillance on these people, right? So he's obviously a Muslim, so he can do that, right? And this guy's a Hamas supporter. He basically admitted that to me on the street. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to get the camera out and phone him, because he said, "Look, I'm undercover," and all the rest of it, and I didn't want to compromise the guy if he was doing anything good. But I'm thinking, how can he actually be a trusted source if he's sympathetic with that cause? I mean, it's just, and of course that is the problem, and that's where the DEI. I'm going to do a video, Stan, right? And don't steal this for Voice of Wales. I'm going to do a video called "Will DEI DIE?" Right, capital letters. Will DEI DIE? So that's going to be. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. No. Oh dear, I've just told 1,400 people. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. I'll put that up. But because it's diversity isn't our strength. I mean, diversity is the complete opposite to what we want. Because what we want is unity and integration. Yeah. You can have diversity in food and in culture and all that. We're not saying you can't do that. But as what needs to happen is there needs to be integration. And the problem is when you reach a critical mass with mass migration, you're in a situation where integration becomes impossible. And all that's possible is multiculturalism, which is really just silos of people growing up on their own, never meeting with their neighbors, resentment growing, bitterness growing, misunderstanding growing. And this is what these reprobates, these disgusting people like Keir Starmer, like Boris Johnson, like what was that other chinless wonder, David Cameron, George Osborne,
Theresa
May. Lot of them, they're rotten. Theresa, man, Robocop,
Gordon Brown.
the little robot dance she did. Oh, Gordon Brown, and of course the one of my friends, and I didn't agree with him. I thought, no, you're a bit off here, mate. One of my friends from way back, as soon as Blair got arrested, told me that Tony Blair was the Antichrist, right? That was, and I don't know if he still believes it, but he believed it certainly for about 20 years. And every time Blair did something, he said, I told you he's the Antichrist. So okay, whatever. But the Blair Witch Project, that's where it all started. So maybe he's right. The Blair Witch Project is where it all started, and this is where they said we're gonna make them choke on diversity. Was it him that said that, or Jerry Adams? They probably both said it, but that was the mantra. They wanted to ram diversity down our throats so that we were literally sick on it. Well, I suppose they need to be careful what they wish for, but yeah. So how do we solve the problem, Stan? How do we get from where we are now to where we need to be?
Like I said right at the very beginning, Tommy came out of Wood Hill like a Ferrari on a track day, and he already had a plan. He had a plan there. He knows what he's going to do at the magistrates' court. He knows he's going to go for a jury, and he knows that he's going to wipe the floor with the establishment if he gets a fair jury. You cannot have two journalists flying to a foreign country, and there's another bit to this as well. Flying to a foreign country, exposing his family and friends for them to live in fear and persecution, and having to flee from Cyprus to Greece because of fear of safety. But then they can't take that on the chin. And who's ordered this anyway? Because it's very hard in London to actually find a copper to come to the, is it 23 stabbings a day, and the shootings and the drugs and the county lines and the trafficking and yet they found time to investigate a foreign crime committed allegedly in Cyprus or even in Greece. Cyprus. We'll go with Cyprus, and also the Crown Prosecution Service have done the same. How many, which would be a great FOI, Freedom of Information question, how many investigations have you taken up where the criminal is on foreign soil and it's a harassment case? And I'll bet the answer there comes none, except one, Tommy Robinson.
Well. Yeah, and again, we're gonna be very careful not to delve into the case, because obviously we don't want you getting your door kicked in, Stan. But the truth of the matter is, it's what really concerns me. When I went on the CPS website, when I heard about what had happened, and the sentence for that crime is the maximum sentence is 10 years in prison.
Yeah,
I mean, that's incredible. That is a very, very serious prison sentence for a very, very serious offence. Now, again, I'm not going to comment on the case, but once this all comes out in the wash, what we can say without prejudicing anything is that we are absolutely convinced that Tommy Robinson is subject to lawfare on a regular basis. And it's been ever since I've known him. Again, I came to London in 2018 for my 50th birthday, and came with my wife. And when the plane landed, I mean, I actually didn't. I'm not going. I didn't really want to go to London because I knew I wanted to kind of just stay away from movement stuff, right? So I came to London and expecting to have a quiet weekend. Got off the plane and my phone metaphorically exploded. It was just message. Tommy's been arrested. So between me getting on a plane and talking to him that morning and getting to London, he'd been nicked again for the heinous crime of asking some convicted child abusers what their sentences were going to be. That's what he got nicked for, right? And of course, the media. Why don't the media talk about this, right?
Yeah.
And so that was in 2018. So as long as I've known him, first met him in 2017. As long as I've known him, this has been going on. He's been literally getting heat from the state, and I think that's the big issue here. Is we as the British people need to stand for Tommy. And that means if we need to go out on the streets in massive numbers, and I mean massive numbers, I'm talking thousands of people in every town and city up down this country, I think we need to do that. And I think it needs to be, very, very careful. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. And I think in terms of where we're at politically, and again, I was talking to a friend about this earlier on, and we were talking about actually on the last stream that we did. Reform seemed to be storming away at the minute, right? Everybody knows my position on reform. Both me and you, Stan, are on the NEC of UKIP. So, our position's pretty clear that we don't support reform, but they are storming away. But that creates a problem to me, because the problem is there's going to be very little accountability if they get a completely free run. And I understand the logic that says, well, just don't say anything against them. When they get into power, they'll change and they'll do this, that, and the other. I just don't buy that, because one, if they do that, then they're not sticking by the manifesto promises, and by default, they're actually doing what the Labour government's done and lying just to get into power. So there's a problem with that. But the other problem is they have deliberately excluded the British working class from their movement. You can get in. They have the token. They have the token pit pony like Lee Anderson. Great guy, mining background, proper lad. Yeah. Not the sharpest tool in the box. Let's be brutally honest with you. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he seems like a decent spud, and he seems to be one of the boys. The rest of them are not. And this is the problem I have. And I'm not trying to make it a class thing, but it's certainly a policy thing, because every time reform come under pressure on things. Yes.
He reminds me of John Prescott. He's not the sharpest tool in the box, but at least he's had his hands dirty. At least he's been, at the sharp end of a pick. So was Prescott.
Yeah, Prescott was a merchant navy man, wasn't he? And he could throw a punch. Do you remember the guy threw an egg at him and Prescott was straight in with a flipping left hook? And you see, and Lee Anderson's been in those sort of situations, and Tommy's in those sort of situations. You don't get many politicians like that. Most of them have never had a fight in their lives. You know what I mean? And not that I would advocate for violence or anything like that, but we were brought up scrapping on the streets. That's what we did in the 70s and 80s, and it. I don't know if it made us good, bad, or whatever, but that was what we did. But not a lot of these people have never had any experience of that. They probably never even had a scrap in the playground.
Yeah, in the 6 weeks holiday, I would probably have one black eye by the end of it. Certainly scratched knees and bruises all over me, because we're either throwing things, pushing things, pulling things, jumping off things.
yeah, blowing things up. I remember throwing it in Middlesbrough. There was no bit of waste ground. We used to build fires, and we built a bonfire on it, right? And I found this big metal drum full of oil, right? So we'd made this fire. So I was about 13 or something. I thought, I wonder what happens if I throw this can full of, and it was one of these big drums, like this pressurized container full of inflammable liquid. I wonder what's going to happen if I throw it on this bonfire. So I walked up, threw it on the bonfire, and it started hissing and bubbling and bending, and I just shouted, "Run!" And we all scattered in different directions, and the bonfire just exploded everywhere. And there was bits of flipping wood and all sorts raining down as like confetti, But that's just But they're all the sorts of things that. Well, I don't know if they made us what we are. Probably did, to be honest with you, Stan. That's not very good advert for what we are, then, is it? But anyway, again, listen, guys. I apologise for two old farts going off on a tangent and talking about stuff that's totally irrelevant. But that's what happens when you get to. I'm not going to say how old Stan is, because he's a lot older than he looks, and that's saying something. I call him Dad. Put it that way. But that's what, because what happens, all our brain cells are all mashed up because we had so many bangs to the head when we were kids. So we were talking about something and we just go off on a tangent. So I do apologize for that. But anyway, free Tommy Robinson. No, he's out, so we don't have to shout free Tommy Robinson anymore. But it's been a good day, Stan. I mean, so to me, the where we were going on that, we were talking about politics and we're talking about politicians and what they do right and what they don't. I'm not going to. No. You can listen. You can't do that. The bonfire's over here in Northern Ireland. There's no way anyone's going to throw a jerry can of petrol. Well, okay, maybe they would, but you're not going to put one in the middle of it so it explodes and blows the bonfire up. That's not going to happen in Northern Ireland. But getting back to the politics, getting back to the politics. What we need is, and I keep saying it, and I wonder if that guy checked out yet. The guy that said he was going to leave if I mentioned the pledge, because I'm going to mention the pledge in a minute. If that guy's still in here, if you're still in there, just let us know in the comments that you're leaving. He's probably left already, but what we need to find a way of bringing everyone together, and I'm going to keep on digging out. Lee Anderson's looking Steve Bray's hat was funny to watch. Yeah, that was the John Prescott moment. What we need to do is, if it's possible, wherever it's possible, live at peace with all men. We need to bring people together, and we need to find a way of doing that. And we need to do that politically. We need to do it as a movement. We need to do it culturally. I believe we need to do it spiritually, and with Christianity. And to me, this thing at the top here, the pledge.org.uk, is a perfect mechanism for doing that. Because the whole idea of the pledge is to bring people together round an ideology. Again, it's not a street movement. You're not going to be getting emails every couple of seconds. I think we've sent probably 2 or 3 emails out since we did it. What we want people to do is sign up so that we can have a mailing list by constituency, because we get everyone's postcode by constituency, so that we can go to the MPs in those areas, present them with the pledge, say, do you agree with these principles? If they say yes, then we go back and tell our people on the mailing list in that area, yes, Joe Bloggs has agreed that he will abide by what's in the pledge and push for those policies. And if they say no, we let the people on the list know. And again, in these marginal seats, 6 votes can make a difference. 600 votes can make a massive difference. 6,000 votes can make a huge difference. Obviously, I think I said earlier, we've got about 54,000 people nailed on. Once the duplication's gone out of the database and all the gash emails have been taken out, there's about 54,000 last count people who are signed up that we can say, okay, we know where they live, we know where they are, etc., etc. So that there is a massive that could win or lose an election, even as it is now, even with 54,000. And now, if we can get that up to 1 million, then it's an even a totally different kettle of fish. And I'm not sure whether I can say it publicly, so I'll not say who. There's a guy I know, and he runs an organization, and it's a well-known, totally legitimate group, and he has 1 million people in his email database. Now, he's been doing it for about 10 years, but 1 million people. And it's a very popular subject, and if I said it, you'd kind of get why he's got 1 million people. But my goodness, this should be even more popular, because this is about saving the whole country. So we should be able to get 1 million people signing up to that.
That's what we touched on it earlier on when we used to have assemblies in school. My school motto was "Live to Serve." And everything was built around that. It was built around team spirits and comradeship, and beating the other houses. Eagle, Kestrel, Falcon, and Merlin were the houses that in my first school, and Cockcroft, Kipling, Fleming, and I've forgotten the last one. So it was all there, and the pledge, the simple structure of it, and the wording of it, everybody would have signed up to that in an instant 20 years ago. But they've taken out so much, they've stripped out so much of our own history to the people that are growing up now. These words are foreign to them, and they shouldn't be. They should be part of you.
No. Yeah, they should. And guys, look, if you haven't signed the pledge, go and have a look at it. I'm not telling people to sign it. Trevor, I know you signed it, mate. You don't have to. You don't have to come on and pretend you haven't signed it. So the reality is, and again, Trevor, we need to get in touch, mate, because I want to get you on the channel. I want to do a face-to-face where you do an interview and have a bit of crack. But the truth of the matter is, go and have a look at the pledge. If you don't like it, don't sign it. If you like it, sign it. But if I agree with that 100%. What you just said there, Stan, because my point is, any right-thinking person should be able to sign it. And what I'm going to do over the next few, I always make these promises and then things happen and things come on top and I go, oh man, I promised to do this and I haven't got it done. But I don't know what this guy's laughing at, but he's laughing anyway. Son of Ulster's just laughing. That's because he's from Northern Ireland, because we're always laughing. Something about Northern Irish people, we're always laughing all the time, even though I'm not from Northern Ireland, but I lived here long enough. But with the pledge, if you look at that document and can't sign it, I think there's three options. You're either a lefty, you're either a far righty, you're either a religious extremist, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, won't say any more about that, or you're a state actor. That's the only option. There is a fifth option, but it'd be very insulting. You're either completely thick as champ and you don't understand what it is and what it's trying to do. But yeah, we need to take a leaf out of Stephen Holroyd's book and sign the pledge. Get it done. And again, we had a big, massive bounce. We're probably gonna have to find different ways of promoting it, because what we'll do, we'll reach a ceiling with our own reaches, Stan, if you know what I mean. You'll reach a ceiling, I'll reach a ceiling. But I think we've got to push it. And if you don't understand what it's about, read it again slowly or get a friend to explain it to you. Not you, Stan, I wasn't talking to you.
Announce it on stage on the 13th.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Tommy supports it. Tommy's supported this from the beginning. I mean, this is the thing. This came out of a meeting with Maya Tusi, Katie Hopkins, Carl Benjamin, Loza. Who else was there? Father Calvin Robinson, Paul Thorpe, Dave Atherton. What's his name? Is it Sebastian from Visegrad? So, there was some really, really bright people in the room, and my friend David, who basically kind of wrote it years ago, and we'd all batted it backwards and forwards for a long time, and then we got it into this sort of pressure cooker, and it came out of the machine at the end of it. And and
the names that you just given, one or two of them aren't Christian.
Yeah,
I know one is atheist, and if they can,
we Jewish
because what you're doing is, this is a Christian-based society. We're not saying that you've got to go to church every night or whatever. It's a Christian-based society, and that's what that is what has kept us sane, whilst the rest of the continents have been at war for years and years and years.
Absolutely, that's what's kept these green and pleasant lands peaceful. The Civil War was a religious civil war, and it was Puritans against Arminians, basically. I mean, that's pretty much religiously what the breakdown of the Civil War was. But for the last 1600s onwards, mid 1600s, there hasn't been massive civil war in the UK, thankfully. And a lot of that's to do, I mean, they reckon in the late 1700s that it was John Wesley and the Methodists that stopped civil war happening in the late 1700s, because they had that great revival with Whitefield and Wesley, where hundreds of thousands, millions of people probably converted in right the way through England's, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and then of course it spread to America as well. So Christianity is massively important, but that's not. I mean, the pledge is not. Even though it's kind of got Christian principles in it, it's written by a Christian. It's not primarily a Christian document. I mean, when we were talking about it, and David was very careful to make sure that if you weren't a Christian, you could still sign it, because if it was too Christian, in fact, we actually approached a Christian organization, and they said it wasn't Christian enough for them. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that ideology is just Britishness. People say, what's Britishness? Well, I'll tell you what, go and read the pledge and you'll find out what it means to be British. It's about fairness. And in that room, we had
Yes.
people from Muslim backgrounds. We had Jewish people there. We had atheists, like you say. We had Christians. We had people from all sorts of different backgrounds. And it was, you know, it was a great event. And that's what it was birthed out of. So so it should be sitting there with 1 million signatures on it. And do you know what? There has been a bit of pushback against it, and I can't really understand why. I genuinely don't understand the motivation of people who are pushing back against it. It leaves me a bit
I'll tell you a little story,
nonplussed.
Rich. And it was when I was a young man. I had the great privilege of meeting Ross and Norris McWhirter and Enoch Powell on the day of the signing of Magna Carta at Runnymede with them. And it was a time when Mrs. T was about, and the country felt great. And I think at that point we thought, well, we can't go better than this, and people relaxed. And unfortunately, what Mrs. T should have done is to start to scrape out, and I use that word correctly, scrape out the dross that had infiltrated the technical colleges, universities, high schools, and primary schools, because they were the communists. They don't believe in a 1-year plan. They believe in a 100-year plan. You know, they slowly catchy monkey. And now all our institutions are captured. But I've seen what the pledge or something equivalent to that was back when I was a young man, and it was a nation at ease with itself, proud of itself, proud of what it had done, and looking forward to the future.
Exactly. And I think we can do it again, because the other thing about the pledge, because it's not overtly Christian, even though it is coming from Christian principles, and it definitely acknowledges the Christian culture that's formed who we are, and we were very careful on the wording on that. It means anyone can sign it. So you think about our friend Shohab. Shohab is 100% integrated. He is the sort of Muslim guy that we want in this country, doing the stuff that he's doing, right? And let's get it right. He's had a lot of heat for it. He's had a lot of heat for standing with us. He's had a lot of heat for taking a stand for what's right. And you know, now he can sign the pledge, no problem. I think about Lubna as well, the lady. I don't know if she signed it or not, but the lady that got all the grief, again, a Muslim woman on her own, single mom, doing a YouTube channel to try and improve stuff, try and improve relations between Muslims and non-Muslims, right? So she's tried to do that, and for a trouble, she's been intimidated and bullied, and you know, that's what it's about. It's for everyone. It is the people's pledge. You know, I made a little AI song. I'll not play it on this because it was a bit cheesy, to be honest with you, called the People's Pledge. But the reality is, it's for everybody. And I am absolutely, you know, I couldn't understand anyone saying they couldn't sign it. Well, I mean, you know, or I could understand. So, okay, someone saying they couldn't sign it. Somebody put on people are scared to sign it. Maybe they're scared of the data. Well, you know, we have to register with the Information Commission, but we hold the data, and the data cannot be shared with anyone else. We'll you know, we can send emails out on people's behalf, but we can't share the data. So the data is secure, you know, as secure as any data can be. I mean, probably a lot more secure than some of the military guys that have left laptops on trains with special forces soldiers names in them. You know, I think our security is a little bit better than that.
Yes,
yeah, you know,
twice.
Yeah,
but I mean,
exactly.
The thing is that you know, we've been our values, our Christianness has been stripped out in little ways.
Yeah.
You can't say Christian name; it's first name.
Yeah.
You can't say AD and BC; it's something else. You can't say so.
Yeah.
So
common era, isn't it?
Yeah, modern era. You know, like the Lion's golden syrup.
Yeah.
Do you know what the lion is?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Daniel's.
Yes, it was to do with Samson. It was it Samson
sorry,
or I think it was
yes.
I think it was Samson, wasn't it?
And
Yes,
it's the
it was Samson.
carcass
One,
of a dead
sweetness
lion.
coming out of the lion. Yeah, yeah.
And there's
That's
bees.
right. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
now been taken
And
off
that was
because it's too
in
religious.
Judges, the book of Judges. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's things like that.
Absolutely,
And there's little stories behind all of those things that that give our nation what it is and what it was built on. And these people that built this nation, like Lyons, like Cadbury, like Roundtree, like a lot of them, the Quakers, many of them as well. They built and made Britain great, and that's what the pledge sort of harks back to.
Absolutely. And interestingly, you were saying about Runnymede. I don't know if you know this. We had a signing of the pledge in November. And again, we've done it in a very soft launch sort of way, because obviously to administer this and to look after this thing, we've got to take it slowly and make sure everything's working and so on and so forth. So we did a kind of soft launch in November last year at Runnymede. We did a film. We got some really nice photographs and some really good people there. So we had Peter Whittle. We had Andrew Bridgen. Obviously, we had Ben Habib. We'd Paul Thorpe. We'd some of the people that worked on the pledge, Jeff Taylor, and we had quite a nice event. It was a lovely hotel just outside Runnymede, and we did that because of the Magna Carta. Because I compare it with them. It sounds a bit arrogant, I suppose, doesn't it? But I say this is the Magna Carta for the 21st century. Yeah, so. That's what this is. It's the Magna Carta for the 21st century, and that's the way we've got to view it. And if enough people sign it, this could have actually a bigger impact than the Magna Carta. Because remember, the Magna Carta was really, as far as I know, it was signed by the barons against the king. It wasn't really the common people. It was two different elite groups competing against each other, as far as I'm aware. And again, I'm not a historian of the Magna Carta, so I don't want to make myself sound stupid by. It's always really worrying when people basically start trying to be cleverer than they are, and I try not to do that because I'm not that clever to start with, so I don't want to try and make people make people think I'm something that I'm not. But yeah, the pledge. Someone says signing the pledge is a good thing, but what then? The whole idea is this, Darren, right? Once we have a critical mass of signatures, and at the end of the day, let's say we're about 54,000, give or take. There might be more. I haven't checked for a little while. But about 54,000 genuine signatures on the pledge, and we know probably where about 90% of them are. We had a few people signing up before we put the postcode as a mandatory thing in the sign up form. But excuse me. But what we're going to do is, once we reach a critical mass, and we'll probably trial this in Wales next year, because what we're going to do is we will have thousands of people in Wales who've signed the pledge, and we'll know exactly where they are, so we can contact them. Then they or us can contact the local MP, probably both actually. Probably the constituents do it, and we do it as people who are running the pledge. Contact the local MP saying, these are the principles we stand for. Do you agree with these principles? Yes or no? And we'll take somebody ignoring the email as a no. And what we'll do is we'll make sure we've got a candidate in that area that does sign up to the pledge. Now, whether that's UKIP, SDP, Ben Habib and the Integrity Party, the Reform, whoever it is, whoever the constituent is that says that he supports it, well, then obviously simply we can say, okay, everybody, this guy's said he supports the pledge. We're not telling people how to vote. We're just telling them that this guy supports the pledge. If everybody supports the pledge, well, then we've got a very nice problem. Yeah. Because we know that we've got maybe, 3 or 4 candidates in there. Then it's just down to people to make their choice, the way they would normally. But if you only have one candidate that supports the pledge, then we'll be saying this guy's the only one that supports the pledge in that area. So I hope that makes sense. It's really simple. Yeah. It's a really, really simple idea. It actually wasn't my idea. I kind of refined it a little bit, but a friend of mine, he'll not mind if I say his name, John Yates from across here in Northern Ireland. He had an idea called the Northern Ireland Vote Pool, and it was similar sort of thing for Northern Ireland. But obviously, we kind of refined it a bit for the rest of the UK. And yeah, so that's basically it. That's what it's all about. And obviously it works in Northern Ireland, it works in Scotland, it works in Wales, it works in England. It is literally for the people, and it is a way of bringing people together and influencing people. And again, if the party doesn't want to do that, that's up to them, but they're going to lose a lot of potential voters. So, that's up to the party leadership. If they don't like the pledge for whatever reason, they're taking a shotgun and shooting themselves in both big toes. You know what I mean? But,
see, there is a couple of sentences that I would put into the pledge. One is the right to bear arms.
Yeah,
and the other one is the Second Amendment.
Yeah. Well, yes, I get that. I get that, Stan. But it's a closed cannon. The cannon is closed. It's a closed cannon. There's not a jot or tittle. Not a jot or tittle is going to fall out of the pledge. It's But yeah, so that's one of the options, and that could be a way of bringing people together and letting people know exactly what different constituency potential MPs or sitting MPs think and believe. And again, it's going to be, I think Darren that was asking the question, what then? It's going to be interesting to see how they respond, because I suppose if everybody ignores it, well, then what do we do? Well, then we have to find candidates that haven't ignored it. It's as simple as that. But there's a long way off. There's a long way off. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting. I was actually speaking to a solicitor about this a while ago, relating to something else. If you got somebody to make a commitment that they were going to do something, and it was signed and witnessed, would that be legally binding? It wasn't to do with the pledge; it was to do with another situation that we were looking at. And he said it would. So I mean, I'm going to speak to that solicitor again and again, get a little bit of off the record advice. I won't hold him to if it's not right. But if we could actually get the potential MPs to sign it, it would indeed become a legally binding contract. And that might scare a few of them off. But I think what will scare them off more is basically if they're not going to whatchamacallit, they're not going to sign, they're not going to sign up to it, because they're going to lose maybe 1,000 votes and lose the election. So yeah, so that's a really good idea, Transit Fran. I think that's what I've discussed with this solicitor, and I am going to get some more advice on that. And again, coming up to the elections, we'll have a look at that. We might not be able to have all that ready for what's happening in Wales next year, but I'll be working with these guys because again, if they want to work with me on this, because I think if they could give me information on the areas that we're likely to have most impact with this, then we can certainly start chatting to the people in those areas by email and saying, look, this is what we want to do. We want to do it in your area. And, that's basically going to be that. So if we can do that, if we can bring people together, uniting the kingdom, bringing everyone together in the UK, bringing everyone together politically, bring everyone together spiritually, which I think is vitally, vitally important. We talked about the need of a Christian revival in the UK, and it's tell us what you said earlier there, Stan, about it starting with me. I think it was you that said that, or was it Dan that said about the whole idea of any sort of reformation has to be personal reformation?
Absolutely right. I'm Dan's children's godfather, and they've got Bibles, storybooks from the Bible, and this weekend I've said that I'll go down and we'll go back to the Bible shop, and Phoebe can pick her own, the next installment. But it does start with yourself, and it does start with just being able to take a breather from the normal hustle and bustle of life. And if that means going to church for 1 hour on a Sunday morning, or taking your kids to Sunday school, and letting them be in the presence of God, then that is surely a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, Stan. And I mean, I've said this many times in the last few months as I've kind of,
had my faith completely reinvigorated. I still struggle every single day with sin and with the very obvious flaws in my own character, which are plain to see for everybody. But I think the reality is that it's the only show in town, Stan. I mean, where else? Where else have you got to go? I mean, when I it's like the old saying, you're better having a Bible that's falling apart, in other words, been read too much, than a life that's falling apart. And I find when I walk away from the spiritual life and from God, then I have all sorts of problems. When I come back to God, well, the problems are still there, but they're just a little bit easier to deal with, and I seem to have a better way of dealing with it. Obviously, again, not always. I mean, none of us are perfect, and we're not sitting here like saying we're saints or anything like that, because I'm certainly not. But the thing is, I believe it all. That's the thing. I know it's true. It's not like a question of thinking it might be true, or I'm not sure. I'm right. I know it's true.
Well, I want people to
I've always said this. I don't believe in atheists.
Yeah, I want people to just think about this: that it was the atheists that actually brought in 7 days a week. I was a member of the Keep Sunday Special campaign, and I fought valiantly to try and keep Sunday special. And it wasn't until, as Dan has told everybody 5 times today, that I was in Spain and Portugal for 3 months, did I realise the importance of family, and the importance that on a Sunday, the whole family went out, whether it was to the beach, to a park, to a restaurant or a cafe. And it was just wonderful to see. And even if you don't believe in God, you've got that spiritualism there with you when you have the whole family. And in Spain, it's not just mum and dad, it's grandparents, mum and dad. It's the extended family. And what a brilliant way to live, where they must still have the money to be able to have days off and have the whole family. In this country, you can't. There are families now that aren't having children because they can't afford them. They're not buying houses because they can't afford them. They're living in squalid accommodation, or they're living with their parents and they don't know when they're going to get out of that trap. And is that an existence? Is that an existence we want? No. We need it to go back. We need it to go back to what it was.
Yes, absolutely, Stan. And I think the truth of it is, it's all of that, isn't it? It's basically everything that made our culture great has been under attack. And again, I think and me and my wife were talking about this. We went out and we I don't know, we forgot to go shopping or something, and we ended up going to Burger King on a Sunday. And and I try not to shop on a Sunday, right? I really do. I know it sounds a bit sort of legalistic, but it's not, because my wife worked in retail, all her life, and basically she says, being made to work on a Sunday, because when they first brought it, nobody's going to be forced to work on a Sunday. But hey ho, if you don't work on a Sunday, well, you can't be a manager if you don't work on a Sunday, because managers need to be available for Sunday. So basically, they're not making you work on a Sunday, but your career's not going to go anywhere. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you work on a Sunday, you'll maybe get an extra day off here and there, and you maybe get a bit extra in the pay packet. So there's coercive pressure put on people to work on a Sunday. Now, and I think when you sign a contract, you've got to say that you'll work on a Sunday. You can't get out of it. I think it's as simple as that now. Whereas, when the laws first came in, oh no, nobody's going to force to do Sunday working, and it is. It's sad. And of course, again, the old Puritans used to call it the market day of the soul. You went to church, you prayed with your family, you sang the Psalms, and this all sounds very archaic but I tell you what, Stan, see, when your back's against the wall, right? There's no better book to go to than the book of Psalms, or the book of Job, or the book of Proverbs. If you want wisdom, you want to know about suffering, you want to know about whether God's interested in what you've done. That's where it's at. I want to just jump in here, because a lot of people have been putting stuff in the comments. about the 5th, which is Tommy's court case. Somebody said that's next Thursday. Would that be right? I'm trying to work it out. Tomorrow's, what day is today? Wednesday. Yes. Is it next Thursday? Or is it before then? What day is the 5th? It would be next Thursday. I think it possibly is next Thursday, right? Okay. I'm trying. If anyone knows what day the 5th is, right? Anyway, if you're going to go to Tommy's court thing, it's the 5th, right? So make sure you book the 5th off, and whatever day the 5th is, whether it's Thursday, Friday, or whatever, it's not going to be a Saturday or Sunday because it's court date, right? So go to his court. If you can get to his court case in London on the 5th, please get there. It's really, really important, because the reality is, I do have a horrible feeling that they're going to try and remand him. And I think if there's 20,000 people outside that court, maybe they'll think twice about remanding him. That's what I think, Stan. What do you think?
Well, they certainly felt twice about arresting those malicious people that attacked the police officer at the airport. Remember that? And they all gathered outside Rochdale police station.
Yeah.
And of course, they were released within seconds.
Yeah. Strange, that, wasn't it? Really strange. That. I mean, strange. You'd almost think that they were maybe scared of. You'd almost think they maybe they were a little bit worried that demographic might cause some sort of problem. Whereas they just think, well, there's those very placid English folk. They're not going to do anything. And of course, we'd never encourage anyone to do anything. That's not what we're about. But I think the truth is that Tommy needs people there. He needs the support of everybody that can get there. I can't get there, unfortunately. But I mean, if you can get to that court on the 5th, please get there. And if somebody can just look up that Bible verse for me to see what Lucio is telling us there. This is where I wish I had encyclopedic knowledge of the Bible. But so what was it? Proverbs 22:17-21. So if someone can look that up. Yeah. Again, Helen, that's absolutely right. They're not scared of us in the same way, and that's a big massive problem. I think we're gonna shoot off here because Maya Toothie's on a live stream, and he doesn't get enough people watching his program, so we want to make sure that we can bump his numbers up a little bit. He's only got 885,000 subscribers. He doesn't have anywhere near enough people watching his live streams. So yeah. Someone said, what's this? I shall carry you there in my voice. I appreciate that. Look, I'll be there. Listen, I will be there in spirit. Yes. Before we go, Lucy Connolly, if you can get onto the there's a link somewhere. I dropped a few quid in it the other day. Lucy's got a GoFundMe thing. I think it's Lawrence Fox has organized it. If you can get onto that, just Google Lucy Connolly Fund or something like that. I'm sure you'll be able to find it, and try and give. If anyone's got the link to that, by the way, just drop it in the comments here. So yeah, the Lucy Connolly thing, we've got to support her. It would be great if when she came out of prison, she had, 100 or so grand in cash waiting for her, so that she can try and rebuild her life, have a lovely holiday, maybe even move house or whatever. Because that woman, again, quite inadvertently, she didn't know she was going to become a heroine of the right, but by goodness, I mean, she has been through the ringer, and what's happened to that woman is beyond evil. And again, let's never forget Peter Lynch's name either, because that man, well, it should never have happened. But yeah, well, guys, someone wants me to play the song. I'll try and find the song here. And
please.
Then we'll play out on this song. So I'm going to try and.
I've heard it.
Have you heard the song? What, the Men of England? Have you heard the Men of England? Have you heard it, Stan? It's not the Pledge song. It's the Men of England song. Mate, this is. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. See if I was. This is where I should have a. No, I wasn't going to sing, Stan. I wasn't going to start singing, mate. Don't worry. I wasn't going to sing. Let me try and find the song, right? Because the song is epic. Let me try and find this here. Guys, if you just all bear with me just a little while. Just tarry with me a little while longer. Let me just see. If the computer starts breaking down, don't worry, Stan. We'll not get the song, but let's have a look. YouTube. Sorry. Here we go. Let's have a look. There we go. Right. Let's see if we can get this into the stream. This is where I need a producer. Do you know what I mean? It's as simple as that. Doing all this on my own, it's just absolutely outrageous. So, get down. So we're going to present, and we're going to share screen. It's a bit like Blue Peter, this, isn't it? Like so. Do you remember Blue Peter? They always say when they were doing something, they'd always say like so. Do you remember that? When they were making one of those little doll's houses out of wallpaper and sticky back plastic. There we go. Like so. So papier mâché. Let's see if we can get this playing. Let's see if we can get this playing. Let's see what happens. I'm going to mute us both here, Stan. Stan, you're in luck, mate. The video just won't play for me. It is not playing. It's not playing for me tonight at all. So let's see. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to try and put it in another browser. But well, listen. I tell you what, actually, guys, listen. I tell you what. If you can't, I can't get this song to play because YouTube's not playing games with me tonight. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask everybody to go and Google "Where are the men of England?" Right? Remember those words. Where are the men of England? What I'll do, Stan, I'll send it to you, mate. Special delivery, so that you can listen to it. If you haven't heard this song, you're going to love it. They've got to play this on the 13th. They've got to play this on the 13th. It's going to be an anthem for our movement. But because YouTube's not working, because the gremlins are at us, then yeah. Where are the men of it? There we go. There we go. Bess, thank you. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try one more time. See if there's another way of getting this up. Let's just see. So, Stan, if you could just entertain everyone while I do this, mate.
Well, that should be easy. Oh my lord! So I think that.
Yeah, I'm not. No, you're not. Go on. Oh, here we go.
No,
I think we're in business.
I'm not going to speak.
I think we're in business. But if it's okay, mate. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. If I can manage to share this, we'll be sucking diesel. Right, let's wait till that advert's gone. Here we go. Here we go.
Where are the men of England, the heroes brave and bold, the men who stood for faith and truth, whose honor wasn't sold? Where were the men of England when abusers so depraved took the daughters of our nation, who forever they enslaved? What of the men of England that looked the other way? They took the country shilling, they never made their play. Where are the men of England, the heroes brave and bold, the men who stood for faith and truth, whose honor wasn't sold? We all seemed quite amused as at the hands of groomers our daughters were abused. The politicians blamed the lads who stood up one and all. Most of all, they blamed the one who always took the fall. Where are the men of England, the heroes brave and bold, the men who stood for faith and truth, whose honor wasn't sold? Where are you, men of England, For now we all must. The future of our children is still within your hand. The future not yet written for this green and pleasant land. Where are you, men of England? The heroes brave and bold, the men who stood for faith and truth, whose honor wasn't sold. Where are the men of England? The heroes brave and bold, the men who stood for faith and truth, whose honor wasn't sold. Where are you, men of England? For now we all must stand. The future of our children is still within your hand. Where are you, men of England? For now we all must stand. The future of our children is still within your hand. The future not yet written, green and pleasant land. Where are you, men of England? The heroes brave and bold, the men who stood for faith and truth, whose honor wasn't sold. Where are you, men of England? For now we all must stand. The future of our children is still within.
This morning, my friends, I asked a question. This morning. I said, where are the men of England? You're here! You're here! You're here!
Here. There we go, guys. That was by popular demand. What do you think of it? What do you think of it, Stan? Do you like it?
Not bad. It missed the word Wales out, though.
Well, it was just for the English, mate. Honestly, listen. Well, do you know, people have said that it doesn't have the same thing when you say where are the men of the United Kingdom. It doesn't just work. So I need to work out another song that includes Wales. That includes the words. Blighty. Where are the men of Blighty? Where are the men of Blighty? That could work. But that misses out Northern Ireland. It's going to have to be the UK. I'll have to do another one for the UK. I'll just have to sit down and work out how to do some lyrics for the UK. But little amusing. That is the magic of artificial intelligence. I wrote the lyrics, right? So I'm going to claim all the lyrics because they were mine, 100%. And then I dropped it into. Do you know, Kelly? People keep saying put it on Spotify. Do you know what? I will, but I don't know how to do it. So it'd probably take me 3 days to work out how to put it onto Spotify and sell it. But I want to do that. And again, there's probably a few licensing issues I need to work out with the AI company as well. But so I wrote the words and dropped it into an AI bot and told the AI about how I wanted it to sound. And it's there we go. There we go. So guys, great stream. Stan, pleasure as always, mate. Do you know what I'm going to say to the audience and supporters and viewers and subscribers and everybody else that's been watching this? Stan is an absolutely superb guy. Go and look for Voice of Wales on the internet until you find all their channels. And if you can go into the description below and give them a bit of support just to encourage them, because Stan's a great guy, Dan's a great guy. They're just a great team. And
the thing
like
is,
I say, we're going to be. We'll.
If you Google us, Rich, it's the BBC slagging us off, then it's ITV, then it's S4C, then it's Drakeford, and then about 3 pages down, you'll actually get to our stuff.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, you've got to persevere. But listen, I mean, that's a badge of honor, and people. That is why go and support these guys in the because once you've done this for more than a few years, you can never work again. You're completely unemployable. Your reputation's completely ruined. Your finances are ruined, and you just end up in total rag order. You know, and that's just the way it is. If you put your head above the parapet, believe you me, there's a lot of incoming fire. You know, we live in a very target enriched environment. So there's a lot of enemies out there that want us to shut our gobs. But and Stan, I think you're like me, mate. You get to the stage where you can't. There's no point in shutting up because
Not at all.
You know, you're toast anyway, so it doesn't make any difference, does it? You know, you get to the point where you realize I'm ruined, so I might as well just keep doing it. You know, guys, thanks everyone for watching. Honestly, support these guys. It's in the description below. Give these guys a bit of love, and you know, try and find them on social media. And even reading the stuff about them on the BBC will let you realize that basically they're the good guys, because if the BBC are slagging you off, it means you're doing something right. Simple as. Right, guys. Great night. Go and watch 2C. Go and watch some other YouTube channels. Don't watch the TV. And as Mark Steiner used to say, stay safe, stay free. See you all soon.
See you all soon. Thank you.